The Winter Olympics were held last week in Pyongyang, South Korea. And now we've got the Football Olympics in town, held at Indianapolis, Indiana, Lucas Oil Stadium. Brendan Albert, our residential scout, is in attendance. Well, he's not going to be in attendance, but he's in attendance for the Bitter Birds. I am Adrian Fedke. We're talking combine today. Tight pants, tight shorts, and sweatpants.
Absolutely. It's the underwear Olympics. I mean, that's really what it is. Personally, for me, I will fully admit this time of the year, the February through the draft is my favorite time of all sports. That includes the Super Bowl. I will fully admit I'm a total nerd. I love the combine. I love the OTAs. I love the individual bowl games and all that type of stuff. So this is my favorite time of the year. I'm really excited to get into it, Adrian.
Hell yeah. And if it's your favorite time of the year, we're going to be locked in at the Bitter Birds. After the combine's over, we're going to start getting into individual prospects. We'll look at the quarterbacks, running backs, definitely some linebackers, because in Philadelphia we need a couple. So we'll get into all that good stuff. But today we're going to focus on the combine. And, the first question out of the jump, what's important about the combine? What are scouts looking for?
Well, I had an NFL scout that I had the privilege of kind of befriending, and is still in the league right now. And I asked him, when you go in the combine, or really when you guys are on the road scouting and things like that, what's the breakdown of percentage of importance between interviews to medical to game film to combine to all this stuff? And he said, honestly, at this point in time, with NFL careers being cut so short because of injury and off the field stuff, he said 60% of the drafting process is about medical and is also about off-the-field issues interviewing. Look at a guy like Foster last year flying down the board just because of some medical issues. And now, as we clearly saw, as clear as day, another arrest, another reason he slid. So I think this is the most important time. I think it's great that the NFL Combine is allowing guys to come back and interview and giving them these one-on-one opportunities. The one thing I'm not personally a fan of about this is they have a rule that anyone who is, under suspicion of domestic violence or has any type of arrest like that is not allowed to come to the combine. On paper, I understand why that's why. I totally get it, and I'm not trying to knock that. However, for me personally, a guy like Mike Hughes, for example, corner coming out of Central Florida, he's going to be a top 40 draft pick, in my opinion. But he's not allowed to come to the combine because of an assault charge he has on him. Personally, for me, that gives a massive disadvantage to the NFL teams, because this is the one time where all 32 teams are in the same physical building. You can grill the hell out of this guy and really find out what's going on with him. So I understand on surface why the NFL is doing and not inviting these guys to the combine, but I think from an NFL team perspective, that's a massive disadvantage.
Yeah. So one of the things about the combine that I know about, and also that I kind of stress, I don't take the combine as seriously as tape. If anything, what you see at the combine is what confirms what you see on tape. Yeah. And if you see a guy run a little bit faster at the combine, then okay, maybe you want to check out the tape again and see what's going on with that. So it's more of a confirmation than anything with the combine, correct?
Absolutely. I mean, look at a guy like John Ross. I think both Adrian, you and I were very high on him coming out of the draft. But when he runs that blazing 40-yard dash time, all of a sudden he gets overdrafted. Now, I still think John Ross's future is bright, but I thought because of his 40 time and all of his numbers, he was a guy who flew up draft boards and got overdrafted. I mean, the Raiders for years were victim of that.
Yeah. Oh, Darius Hayward-Bay. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, we know all about that. All right, so let's kind of get into some of the drills and what's important out there. I'm more of like a defensive guy when it comes to the combine. I think some of those drills are better, especially the defensive backs. I think that's the group that you can really study, especially a lot of the pedal drills when you're backpedaling and seeing who's stiff-hipped, who's not, when they got to turn the hips, flip the hips. I know for the defensive linemen, the three-cone drill is really important for the defensive ends. That's going to show off your balance, bend, and flexibility. And then for linebackers, we in Philadelphia, we need linebackers.
Yeah.
So for linebackers, you want to look at the 20-yard shuttle. So that's going to test out your balance, change in direction. So what do you think is really important out there in terms of the drills?
Adrian, you nailed it across the board with everything you said. I
All right,
100%
just
agree.
let you speak.
You know,
Yeah.
no, you're good, brother. You're good. No, everything you said is spot on. I think for defensive backs, in my opinion, are the guys who can make the most money at combines and lose the most money at the combine. We have seen countless years a defensive back run a slow 40 and all of a sudden he gets drafted late. T. Tabor is a great example of it.
Yeah.
Tape showed one thing, ran the combine, tested really poorly, gets drafted much later. So defensive backs, it's a lot about arm measurement, how long are they arms, how the 40-yard dash goes, and the individual drills. I call it the oh shit drill, the one where they start in the pedal, they come downhill, flip, go ahead and find the ball. That's a really, really important one, especially for safeties. So that's a great thing. For, offensive linemen, another thing for Philadelphia Eagles to be kind of circling, especially the left tackle position. How do they do in that rabbit drill? That's the drill where they have someone running across and they
mirror
shuffle
drill.
side to side.
Yeah.
Mirror drill. Yep.
Yeah.
Mirror drill, rabbit drill. That's another really important one too. Quarterbacks, I don't think the combine is as much important about throwing the ball at the combine as much as it is the individual meetings. So quarterbacks, yes, it's exciting to talk about. It's exciting to say, man, look at that ball placement. That's great. But I think the more important thing is the meetings for those guys.
They're actually not really looking for the ball placement as much as how the ball's coming out of your hand.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what they're looking for there.
Yeah, seeing how that ball pops, from the wrist, seeing the motion, how quick is it, things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's kind of get into some of the things. Sam Darnold electing not to throw. So he's in a cluster with Josh Allen and Josh Rosen. Is he at a disadvantage? Is he doing the right thing?
I think he is. Personally, I would have advised the same thing. In my opinion, when I look at the quarterbacks, let me tell you guys how I would describe each of them. Darnold is the best quarterback, and I say that because of off the field. He makes big possessions count. He's the best quarterback. Concerns for him is turning the ball over. Okay, fine. Rosen is the best passer. If you were to ask a quarterback in middle school to learn how to throw a football, you would put on Josh Rosen. His motion, his stroke is beautiful. Rosen's issues, off the field concerns, is he kind of a diva? Is he kind of self-absorbed? And can he stay healthy? Then you have Baker. Baker Mayfield, biggest competitor, plays with a chip on his shoulder. It's going to turn some people off. Some people are going to love it. I relate him a lot, not to Johnny Manziel, more to Phillip Rivers. So a lot of people don't like how Rivers is a loudmouth, has a lot of energy. If you don't like Rivers, you're probably not going to like Baker. The reason I think Baker is so different than Johnny is teammates of Baker love him. So Baker, to me, he's the best competitor. Lamar Jackson, obviously the best athlete, leaps and bounds, no question about it. Lamar Jackson's questions is accuracy. Can he really throw the ball accurately, consistently in the NFL? To be determined. Then we have Josh Allen coming out of Wyoming. No question, biggest, most powerful arm. It's something you look at and you say, wow. He can walk into the NFL and make every throw in the NFL because of his arm strength. His problem, also accuracy. So there's kind of a flip there. And then the guy I circle, Kyle Lauletta, coming out of Richmond. He's currently that fast riser. Every year the NFL quarterbacks combine and then also Senior Bowl has one NFL quarterback that rises, and everyone's like, ooh, maybe is this the guy this year who's going to be that late round steal? Kyle Lauletta had an incredible Senior Bowl. I've had the chance to meet him. He's an awesome dude. Can he continue it on this rise? So now he's got two big things. He's got obviously his pro day, and then, of course, he's got the combine. So he's a good one. But for Darnold, I think he's a lock in the top 5. I don't think he slides out of the top 5. So for me, don't throw at the combine because you don't know the receivers. You don't necessarily know everything that you're going to get put through. Save that for the pro day because you can control every throw at the pro day. You can control every receiver at the pro day. For Darnold, I think he's doing the right thing and holding out.
Okay. All right. Because there's some murmurs, but not too many. I mean, the quarterbacks, if anything, there's not really much you can show. So that's the way I do it.
That's why I think the individual meeting rooms is so important. And, especially for a guy like Rosen, the question is going to be, does he really love it? How really driven is he to do it? Baker, it's going to be, was that stupid underage arrest something really to be concerned about, or is that just something to say, hey, he was a kid, throw it under the radar? Lamar Jackson, question is going to be, does he really understand NFL verbiage? How is he going to do with that? So, yeah, Adrian, I don't think you really get a ton of benefit from throwing at the combine. I think you get more throwing at Senior Bowl, and you get more at throwing at your pro day.
Just quick question, NFL based. So Jacksonville's picking at what, 29, 30, wherever they are. Do you think they go quarterback? Because they just gave Blake a contract. I think they could maybe double up there. If Blake kind of struggles, you can throw someone else out there. So it's kind of a two-parter. Do they go quarterback, and is Lamar Jackson going to fall that far?
That's the big question. I think he will slide. I think Lamar Jackson is a top 40 draft pick, but because where he plays quarterback, he'll probably get drafted between 15 and 30. I think that's realistically where he'll get drafted. Now, Lamar Jackson and the Jaguars, I think it makes sense. If you look at that Jags deal they gave Bortles, it's pretty much all front-loaded. So they can still get out of it, not a big deal, like the Bears did with Mike Glennon. So I don't think it's that big of a deal. I think he could be a fit in Jacksonville. I actually would rather him go and play in Minnesota. I think that's probably a better fit. They have a better offensive staff who we see as Eagles fans know they can build around a quarterback, develop to his strengths. I think that'd be a better fit. But, yeah, I think he's going to end up being an end-of-first-round pick.
Okay. All right, so let's kind of talk some linebackers, some tackles. I see you got some tackles written down here in your notes. Who you want to talk about?
So there's a couple different offensive tackles. The guy I personally like the most, now maybe it's because I'm living out here in Vegas, so I got to have a little bit of West Coast bias now. I really love Terrell Crosby from Oregon. Super athletic left tackle. Had a couple nicks and bruises here and there, so didn't play as many games as you would like. He's a guy I'm really a big fan of. I've watched a lot of Oregon games again because that's like my noon game now, being on the Pacific time zone. I like him a lot. I think he's probably a guy second, third round pick, so that might take a little bit of movement around for the Eagles to do. There's a couple other offensive tackles here. You have Rankins from Mississippi State. He's a guy who might slide into that end of first round left tackle situation, so he could be a fit there. Then you have another offensive tackle you have in Miller coming out of UCLA. Question about him is he might be too tall. Leverage might be a concern for him. He might be measuring in closer to 6'8" to 6'9". You could be getting to a range where you're almost too tall now, and leverage might be a concern. And then their kind of potential sleeper in all of this is Desmond Harrison, who's a left tackle coming out of a Division II school, got kicked off the team at Texas. So his talent is through the roof, but his off-the-field concerns are pretty large too. He also might be a little bit light. He really needs to weigh as close as possible to 300 pounds. It looked like he played closer to 275 at 280 range. That's just too light to play offensive tackle in the NFL. So you have all those guys. I don't think a guy like Mike McGlinchey from Notre Dame is going to end up being a left tackle. I think he's a right tackle, and he's not going to be there where the Eagles pick. I think Connor Williams is the best left tackle in the draft. I don't think he gets out of the top 20, maybe even the top 15. So I think for the Eagles, there's not a great left tackle there for the first-round pick.
So maybe you go linebackers. See, the thing I think the Eagles might do, if they don't trade Nick Foles, I think they're going to trade back and try and acquire more picks because you're really cutting it there with the free agency period and the lack of money you have. So you need to get linebackers somehow if you don't re-sign Nigel Bradham. So maybe you trade back, you take somebody, say, in the second round, and then you draft maybe another one even in the third round. We'll see. The guy that I'm intrigued about, and you got him circled in your notes as well, Leighton Vander Esch from Boise State. So we'll see how the white boy tests.
Yeah, I love this guy. I think this guy is going to be one of those people. He's probably going to get drafted, I think, between 15 and 30, and I think a lot of people are going to look around the room and say, who is this? But I think the dude's a stud. I really like him a lot. He was a walk-on at Boise State. So that tells you that this guy's a worker. He played quarterback most of his time in high school. So he played a little linebacker too, but was probably more of a quarterback recruit. Switched, became a walk-on linebacker, came out early as a junior. If you really want to know what this guy's all about, go ahead and put on his bowl game. He put on a show against Oregon. Kid can flat out play. I think he would be a great fit for the Philadelphia Eagles as a linebacker in the first round. But I have another hypothetical situation I could see happening. I think Derek Johnson is going to get released by the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't think the Chiefs are going to keep him. He's going to have about $8 million on the books. He certainly can still play. I think the Chiefs are just going to release him. I think that would be a fantastic signing for the Eagles there.
Depends what the money is.
Absolutely.
We'll see about that. I mean, would he come on for, say, I don't know, $3-4 million?
I think he would. I mean, I think he's at that spot in his career. Now, it's easy for me to say because there's two roads you kind of think about here. The guys who are in the twilights of their NFL career. Guys who say, look, I just want to win. And you know what? I'll take less money and go play for the Eagles, team who just won the Super Bowl. Or the other thought, which I don't blame either, I only have maybe one more contract in my body. I'm going to go get paid as much as possible, and I don't care if I lose, but I'm going to put all my money away, and I'm going to go sign with a team like the Jets or a team like the Browns who have a ton of money and can overpay for me, but I can put my money in the bank.
Yeah. That's what it's all about. I agree with you there. What do you think about Malik Jefferson? That's been a guy that's been tied to the Eagles in a lot of mock drafts.
Yeah, Malik Jefferson's going to be one of those guys. He's going to go to the combine. He's going to light it up. I'm going to tell you it right now. Everyone's going to watch Malik Jefferson. They're going to say, holy shit, this guy can flat out move. He's a freak athlete. He is. He's going to be one of those guys where I'm telling you all right now, folks, you're going to watch him at the combine, and the next day you're going to see him as a top 15 draft pick in a mock draft just because he's one of those underwear Olympic guys.
Yeah, now, size and speed.
100% right, Adrian. Now, he is what I would call a floater. So most linebackers, I'll use the Baltimore Ravens as a great example. The Baltimore Ravens have a thumper and a floater in their linebacker system. For years, the thumper was Bart Scott. He was the guy who would take on attacking guards, fullbacks, etc. The floater was Ray Lewis. Keep him out of the trash, let him run sideline to sideline. I don't think Malik Jefferson's a Mike backer. I think he's more of a money backer, maybe an outside guy. So I think he could be a guy who could come in, play a little more outside backer than middle. I like him in the middle of my defense. He's not great at taking on trash. I think he's better on the edge, but he's an absolute athletic freak.
All right, so not only is the combine going on in Indianapolis, the bets are coming in Vegas. Mm-hmm. So we've got some sports book stuff I'm going to share with you guys. All right, so we got faster 40-yard dash, Saquon Barkley or Lamar Jackson. So minus 150 for Saquon, Lamar plus 20. We got over under a 4.55 for Kerryon Johnson in the 40. So all these are 40s. Nick Chubb, 4.54. We got Barkley's at 4.4. Baker Mayfield, 4.69. Calvin Ridley, 4.4. And we also got Josh Rosen and Josh Allen in a little pick'em scenario too. So what do you think about all those little prop bets?
You know, I love Vegas here, okay? If you want to bet on something, Vegas will put a line on it, all right? I mean, so the combine now has become made to watch TV when Vegas starts putting bets on it. I think some of the things I take away from this is the Saquon Lamar Jackson 40-yard dash should really scare the shit out of NFL defenses, that people understand that, you know, Saquon's going to come in at 230 plus, and he's going to be running one of the fastest 40s out there, except for probably a defensive back or, you know, a little track slot receiver. I don't think Kerryon Johnson's going to run 4.55. If he runs sub 4.55, Kerryon Johnson's going to be a guy we're going to hear mentioned probably earlier in the second round than he should be. A whole bunch of other guys here. Nick Chubb's not running 4.5. I think Nick Chubb's probably going to run more of a 4.6. Yeah. And when he runs that 4.6, people are going to say, oh, he's too slow. Nick Chubb's been slow. He's never been the breakaway guy. So he's a guy that he probably needs to run a 40 just to kind of solidify that. But that's not really his skill set. It's always been Sony Michel's ability here. I think Josh Allen will run faster than Rosen. The other thing you got to remember is Josh Allen is putting on a lot more weight than Josh Rosen, so he's got more to carry there too. But there's a whole bunch of, you know, guys that are going to really light up the combine. It's a really exciting group.
Yeah. Tight end number one. Who's the best tight end in the draft?
This is the question, you know, because you go to 5 different people, you're probably going to get 3 or 4 different answers. I personally like Hayden Hurst from South Carolina. I think he's the best fit. The problem with him is he's an older prospect. He was a guy who tried going professional baseball, and then he said, you know what, I'm just going to go be a captain on an SEC team. What a nice problem to have. You know what I mean? So I think he's probably going to be the tight end one. I think we're probably going to see, name's escaping me, a tight end from Penn State is a guy who's probably – that's it. He's probably going to light up the combine too. He'll probably have a plus 40 vert. He'll probably run in the 4.6s, and people will look at him and say, maybe this is a guy we should draft higher. he can't block a soul. But you know what? Jimmy Graham still hasn't blocked a soul in the NFL, and he's getting paid heavily. So I don't know about the tight end position. This is a position that's wide open right now.
Yeah, and Hurst is a guy, he's going to be 25 years old.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a big concern for some teams.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Jasicki is a guy that, he's going to be your pass catcher, like you were saying. The Eagles might need a blocking tight end. We'll see what they do with Brent Selleck. You would save $4 million if you cut him. So we'll see what the Eagles do there. Another guy that seems to be getting a lot of hype is Durham Smythe from Notre Dame.
Yeah, I mean, there's a big clump at the tight end group. There's Fulmugatu at Wisconsin. Fumagalli. He's another guy in that mix. UCF's tight end. He had a fantastic Senior Bowl, so he's another guy in that mix. This tight end group, I don't think there's anyone who's a top 40, but I think there's probably a bunch of guys that are probably 40 through 55 in that mix. I mean, I just think they're kind of a dime a dozen at the tight end. I think they're all going to be potential rotating, helping guys. I don't think there's any stars here. I would probably say Mike from Penn State is probably the biggest upside because of his athletic ability, but there's not really a tight end here that I am banging the table saying, hey, this guy's leaps and bounds better than the others.
Yeah, and for the Eagles, they need somebody who can block. So yes. Smythe might be the guy in the middle rounds you go after. I could see that.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assumption there. I think the other thing we have to kind of assume as Eagles fans is Trey Burton's gone. There's reports
he's gone. Yeah, people in Philadelphia, they want him back, but you got to understand the cap scenario. They don't have any money to re-sign him, and he probably wants to be a number one somewhere. You don't want to be in the shadow of Zach Ertz anymore.
Absolutely. I mean, he's won a Super Bowl. This is a time to cash in and, frankly, to get overpaid. I mean, it's that Joe Flacco scenario. It's you are hitting free agency at the perfect time. Go get paid and, go be at the team's number one tight end for a couple of years. He's just going to get overpaid. So I think the Eagles, my opinion, are probably going to release Selleck, try to bring him back on more of a cap-friendly deal. I think that's very realistic. Selleck's never played anywhere else in his career, so I think you probably would say, at this point I'll stay. But, yeah, I think another tight end in the later rounds is probably realistic. Maybe a guy like Dallas Keuchel from South Dakota. Where does he fit in? I mean, he could go anywhere from 2 to the 4th round. There's a whole bunch of tight ends who could be in that mix there.
Yeah, and they just need somebody that can block alongside Zach Ertz. Because the other thing about bringing back Trey Burton is, okay, that's great and all, but if you have Trey Burton and Zach Ertz out there, you got two guys that aren't really adept at blocking. And that's, it's great and all that he can catch passes, but you need somebody that can block alongside Ertz too. That's the way I feel.
Exactly. You need to have someone – because you got to remember too, the Eagles don't really have a fullback on the roster. And that's really what Selleck was kind of doing. So, yeah, I think Selleck ultimately will get brought back. I think between Selleck and Burton, Selleck is actually more important of the two, in my personal opinion.
I agree. I've been trying to say that to some people. They don't want to have it, though.
Well, it's because it's what Selleck does isn't sexy.
It's not sexy at all. Yeah.
No, but what Selleck does is what Ertz can't do. That's why he's more important.
That's why it's important. Yeah. That's exactly why. Trey Burton's a better player, but in terms of what fits better for the team, it's
correct. Correct. 100%.
That's the way I can explain it there for the people out there. All right. Wide receiver drills. They got the gauntlet. What do you think about the gauntlet? I always think it's kind of silly, but I do enjoy watching it.
I mean, I think it is kind of silly. I mean, it's not necessarily a really 100% realistic drill for receivers. I think the 3-cone drill is important for receivers. I think obviously the 40-yard dash is exciting, but I would take the 3-cone drill over it. I think it's so much more about burst. The only situation where the 40 really is important is when you're a big body receiver and you're not a route runner. So insert a guy like Cortland Sutton from SMU. He's not really the route runner. He is the big body Alshon Jeffrey model. He needs to run mid sub 4.5s and below. If he doesn't, he might be tied to a guy like Treadwell, who was a guy who didn't really test well, got drafted late, and as we see, still hasn't really done much. If he can run sub 4.5s, now we can see, hey, this is a guy who probably can separate. And now we can see a guy like Michael Thomas, of the New Orleans Saints, who should have been drafted much higher. I don't know why he wasn't, but he should have been drafted much higher. But I think that's something that could be a big circle for Courtland Sutton. Yeah, I agree with you, Adrian. Gauntlet drill, don't really care a ton about it.
Yeah, and for the 40-yard dash, in terms of that, for the defensive ends, you actually want to look at the first 10 yards because you want to see the explosion off the snap sort of deal.
Yep, 10-yard split is really important for those edge defenders. A guy, I can't remember his name, he's drafted at Kansas State, was drafted in the second round by Jordan Willis, by the Bengals, had an electric first 10-yard split. And look, he had an electric rookie campaign. So I think you're 100% right, Adrian. That's a very, very important thing for those edge rush guys.
Okay. I think that's basically it. I think we covered all bases. I know you wanted to talk about St. Brown from Notre Dame. Yeah,
okay. So the Brown family, all right, they are going to make the balls look like a heap of trash in the next several years because this family's athletic ties are unreal. Dad was a 2-time Mr. Universe, 3-time Mr. World. Mom was also a professional bodybuilder from Germany. Dad played Division I football and then decided he wanted to go professional bodybuilding, okay? So the kids, they have multiple sons. The first one is Aramis. I think it's Aramis. I'm probably butchering his name, from Notre Dame. Another big body receiver, above 6'3", go up and get at the highest point type of guy. He's a guy who's probably going to be a top 40 draft pick too. Then they have a younger brother, Araman, who's going to be a freshman at SC. He is going to be a guy, I'm putting my nuts on the table, money on the table right now. He is going to be a guy in 4 years who will be a first-round draft pick, and you will compare him to Antonio Brown. I had the privilege of working with him at Rivals at the Top 100 camp last year. He's unreal. Why this family is so unique to me, they are fluent in German, French, and English, which a lot of people are like, okay, cool, that's all well and good. But let me tell you why this is so impressive. Both boys have taken the ACT in German, French, and English. And in all three of them, they scored above a 30 in different languages. Me, I think I scored maybe a 24, and I was thrilled about it on my ACT. So these guys are going to light up the Wonderlic, which is something most people don't care about, but they're going to light it up. These guys are truly student athletes, and I think these guys are going to be a family that we're going to be talking about in a couple of years, saying this is a special family in the NFL.
Well, speaking of the Wonderlic, since you kind of brought it up there, I would say it's kind of important for the quarterbacks because you got to be able to read a playbook. You got to be able to read a defense. I think in some ways it's kind of important for them. Maybe not so much other positions, but I'll give you an example. Like Vince Young scored like a 9 at just dumb as a rock, and he couldn't lead a team. So in some ways I think the Wonderlic is important, even though we all kind of laugh at it.
Yeah, I mean, I got my opportunity to get my hands on a Wonderlic once, and it's longer than you would think. And some of the questions aren't terribly difficult, but it's so lengthy that it really is all about speed, trying to get through things as quick as possible.
Yeah.
Now, that's really what we talk about with quarterbacks. How quickly can they come off reads? How quickly can they diagnose defenses? How quickly can they memorize plays? So, yeah, Adrian, I would agree with you. Certainly pretty important for the quarterback position there.
Okay. All right. Anything I missed? Anything else?
You know, the only other thing I just wanted to kind of throw in here, guys, is the Kirk Cousins sweepstakes is certainly something we're, still seeing. I think there's a couple teams who are big potentials. Obviously the Vikings, you have the Jets. I don't think the Browns are a realistic fit unless the Browns say we will give you a fully guaranteed contract, which is crazy, but with how much money the Browns have, they got to spend it somehow. So I think that's a unique situation for him. Now, the team that I think has a hurdle, and if we see it happen, if Aqib Talib gets traded from the Broncos, potentially to a team like the Niners or to a team like the Browns who have the money, then I think Denver obviously has the money, and then it's a walking right into the Broncos. And the Broncos could be a team who we could be looking at as the Jacksonville Jaguars, who a year ago were a top 5 pick, and then all of a sudden are playing deep into the playoffs.
Yeah. All right, I'll throw in the mandatory Nick Foles question then. So what do you think he could potentially get? Maybe a first and a mid-round pick? Do you think you can get a first for him?
Yes, because I don't think if you told me you could have gotten a first for Sam Bradford, I wouldn't say you're more.
Yeah, it's like the BGN guys, Bleeding Green Nation guys, they don't think you can get a first because they kind of throw out the Jimmy Garoppolo situation. But here's the thing about the Jimmy Garoppolo situation. He got traded mid-season. You only got him for half a year. So they almost kind of gave him away for a second-round pick. In this instance, you get Nick Foles for cheap for another year. So even if you don't even have to sign him to extension immediately, you can kind of see what he does. So the fact that you get him for a full year instead of half a year, I think that makes a difference.
Oh, it does, because, the Jimmy Garoppolo was going to be on a free agent, and he was going to get way overpaid, and there wasn't a large enough sample size for the Niners or for any team for that matter to say, hey, let's go out and trade him. We'll let him start 16 games, and then we can give him a fair market value free agent signing. Because the Niners didn't have enough time, they essentially said, Jimmy, you can pick what you get paid because we don't know necessarily, and that's the deal with quarterbacks. If you don't know, pay me everything. That's the unfortunate thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think, honestly, I understand the loyalty to Nick Foles and everything. If I am in the Eagles front office, what I would do is I would sit down with Nick Foles and said, look, you did something that every Philadelphia fan has dreamed about, win a Super Bowl. Because of that, we are going to allow you to pick. Do you want to stay here and be a backup, or do you want to get traded and potentially be a starting quarterback again in the NFL? Whatever you want, we're okay with. Let him pick. I think he's earned that right, which is one of the rarest things in professional sports, the right to pick what happens next to you in your contract. Yeah. I think he's earned that. But if I had a choice, I would trade him. Strike while the iron's hot, move on. And then if you really like Nate Sudfeld and he can be your backup quarterback, or you want a stopgap guy for a couple of weeks until Carson's fully healthy, go out and sign Mike Glennon. Even if you lose a couple of games, who cares? I mean, realistically, losing a couple games early doesn't kill you, especially because, look, we didn't think Nick Foles was going to do what he did. Why would we say that Mike Glennon can't win a couple of games? If Nick Foles can win a Super Bowl as a backup quarterback, why can't you get Mike Glennon with an entire offseason to win you 2 or 3 games just to be a stopgap? I absolutely would trade Foles, strike where the iron's hot, get draft picks, and keep rebuilding.
Yeah, I made a video recently about Nate Sudfeld, and I did the hot take. I'm saying they're going 3-1 if Nate Sudfeld starts the first 4 games of the year. Now, a lot of that is contingent on who they would play.
Absolutely.
But you look at what the Eagles have as a team; they're pretty damn complete. I mean, they got essentially the best offensive line in football, at least it was this year. And you have a top 5 running attack. You have a great defense. So you can win games strictly on your running game and playing great defense. And Nate Sudfeld wouldn't have to do too much. So we saw this against Oakland. I mean, Nick Foles looked absolutely atrocious in that game. They won 13-10.
Yeah. Yeah, you're 100% right, Adrian. I personally would trade him. And I just think about it like this way. You get nothing. I mean, for him to play 3 or 4 games, that's great. Now, this Bill Polian's idea of I'm not answering the phone unless it's 2 firsts and 2 twos is just absolutely moronic. That's just so far-fetched. What I think realistically he's probably like a 30 to a 40 pick, maybe some loose change at the end, like a 5th or something like that. I would trade for it. Personally, for me, I would do it, and then if I get another one, I would go out and draft a guy like Sony Michel or Ronald Jones or Mark Walton. I'd get another back there because, Jay Ajayi had a great year, but that concern about his knee is still there. I mean, I don't think any medical doctor is saying, oh, well, now because he won a Super Bowl, his knee is good to go and he's going to be able to play 5 years in the NFL. But Garrett Blount's gone, and then Darren Sproles is still an old cat. Obviously, you have Steele there and Clement, but look, the Eagles were rumored to try to go out and get Dalvin Cook in the NFL draft last year. You're telling me if they can't get a guy like Ronald Jones or Darius Geis, or they can get a guy like Sony Michel, do it. I mean, just load up on that offense. I think that would be a smart thing to do for the Eagles.
Yeah, for sure. And it's a really, really deep running back class. So you should probably try and take advantage of it if you can.
Absolutely. We know the Eagles aren't rich with picks this year, and that was worth it. For everything that happened, it totally is worth it. But if you have the opportunity to trade some players and get some picks, i.e. what Kansas City has done over the last 2 weeks, go ahead and do it.
Yeah. All right. That's pretty much it. We're going to hop out. So that's Brennan Albert. I am Adrian Fetcu. Enjoy the Combine. We will have a recap, as I explained before. And I can't wait to do the prospect video. So we're going to be breaking it down, baby. Breaking down the film.
Love it. I'm thrilled about it. It's my favorite time of year. Before we hop off, Adrian, congratulations, man. Give yourself a little humble brag. What you got going on Friday?
Yeah. Well, I already made a video about it yesterday, and honestly, I was very humbled by a lot of the love that I got from the comments section. So I will be debuting as a host on Fox Sports Radio 920 The Jersey. So basically, I'm going to be a fill-in host. They didn't have the budget to hire me full-time, so that's why I'm doing the fill-in segment. But filling in for Zach Gelb. Whenever he's out, I'm going to be filling in for him. So really pumped about it, and just another baby step for me in my career. So there you go.
Well, it's well-deserved, Adrian. I'm really thrilled for you. For all of our listeners, I'm sure they're thrilled for you. So best of luck, man, on Friday.
Appreciate it. And if I ever need a draft guy, I'll bring you on as a guest.
You already know. It's my time of year.
There you go, baby. That's Brendan Albert. I'm Adrian Fethu. Peace out.
Appreciate it.